Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Juan of Words podcast, and welcome to our new studio.
That's not true. That's not true.
I thought I'd fool you guys. No,
You're not fooling anybody.
for those of you that are listening and not watching, we're actually in Austin today, and we're staying at an Airbnb. So this is not actually our studio. This is just a new space that we
This is
decided
not our
to
home.
record.
This is somebody else's house.
Yeah, this is somebody else's house, but it is
It's
a very
cute.
nice house.
Well, it's not a house. It's like a little room on the side of their house
Yeah.
that they build out.
Yeah. So when I guess right now when we travel, I guess you were saying that we don't travel far because we only travel like from city to city within Texas, and you don't really consider that traveling. But for some people, they may consider that traveling. But like what we've started to do now that we are starting to venture out a little bit is that we'd rather rent Airbnbs rather than go to like a traditional like hotel.
Or a hotel. Yeah, just because, and it for me it has to be specific like this, where it has a separate entry, and it doesn't really have another entry unless they come to the door that we walked into, right? So I like for it to be like unattached. And I don't mind that maybe it is attached to the house, but as long as they don't have like a private entry.
Yeah. And we've done those before too, where it's like it's separate. It's still attached, but it's separate, so you don't really you don't share. There's not a communal bathroom. There's not a communal kitchen. Like you just like the space you're in is the
definitely. You don't
space
share the
you're
space
in.
you're sharing.
And you don't have to like go into an elevator or like into a
Stuff
shared
like that,
space like that, where you have to like be in proximity with some people. Because sometimes when you're walking into an elevator, like you think you're by yourself, and then all of a sudden somebody like at the last minute like hits the button, and then they walk into the elevator with you. And that's happened to me one time when I got off.
But why is that a worry right now?
Why is that a worry right now? I don't know. I'm just like talking about it.
Okay.
But no, I was just saying like one time somebody did get into the elevator with me, and then you were like, "Why didn't you get out of the elevator when they got in?" I was like, "I don't know. I thought that was rude. Like I don't know. I thought it would look rude."
I don't care. For me, it's more like, oh, this is my like you can wait. People can wait. I mean, I don't mind waiting, and especially right now, like you can wait a few seconds, you can wait a few minutes for first of all, you don't even know if the person you're getting in the elevator with is sick, and you're just going to be all up in their space. Yeah,
and then it was funny that time when that person got in. They were like, "Oh, I'm facing away from you." So she turned around and faced the corner, and she's like, "I'm gonna stay like this so that you don't." And I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I didn't even say nothing. I was just kind of like, "Okay."
I would have been like, "Perfect. Can we stop talking?" Less. Yeah.
But we're in Austin today, and we were actually having this conversation yesterday where we were talking about. So if you're not from Texas, Austin is literally what, like would you say, like 2 hours away from Houston? 3 hours?
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours away from Houston, and it's
so specific. 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. So we were actually saying that yesterday that we actually every time we come to Austin, we seem to find something else that we like about the city. Like
we do because it has so many layers.
Yeah,
it has so many things to look at. The thing is, like the south side is so different from the east side, and then especially it's so different from like the west side. So the west side is where the canyons are at, and then if you go north, it's like Round Rock. And that's a whole other thing.
Well, like right now, like yesterday with the park we went to was like they had like a body of water, and the body of water was clear, and I was like, wait, the water's clear? And like that's so unusual. Like you don't find that. Like
you have to understand that the water comes from the canyons, like here, and so it's clear water.
And the thing is, like you also have the Hill Country, so like I don't know, just like it was. I think coming here and like coming over, like we come to Austin often.
We do often enough, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the difference between like Austin and Houston is that Houston is a little bit more industrial probably, and Austin just has like more. I guess it's more like
it's a small hometown.
Yeah,
it's a big hometown.
Like it still feels like a big city to me. But
part of it, that's the whole charm to Austin. It's that it has its big city like vibes when you like travel into downtown. But then as soon as you and then it has like its little suburbs immediately when you start like driving out, and then of course you got country. You're like you drive out 20 minutes and it's country.
Well, that's like that's what I was gonna say. Like
Yeah.
hill country, I think is like really cool too. Like that you can like just drive out and you'll be in the hill country.
And literally hill country because it's like winding roads.
And the weather was actually really fresh. Like yesterday,
Well,
it felt really fresh. I mean, I'm sure like
It's probably fresh in Houston. We're only 2 hours away.
Yeah, like we're in the fall already.
Yeah.
But like I think the fact that we were like that there's those canyons and the water and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I could go on and on, but I just thought that was like just wanted to share that like we are starting to like Austin a lot for some reason.
For some reason,
I don't know, but
no, for obvious reasons that we're talking about, we were really loving Austin.
yeah.
But
Before we get into kind of what I wanted to talk about today,
Okay.
I did. You're still doing your Latino leadership series, so
I am.
tell us a little, how's it going? How you doing? How you liking it?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to give us an update?
Yeah, why not? Well, I am. So I've interviewed 3 people thus far. We are in the second week of Hispanic Heritage Month.
Mm-hmm.
I've interviewed 3 people. I think one of the things I'm having a hard time with is that the fact that it's 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talked to me before in the past, you know that I love to talk. And so it's very difficult to keep it under 15 minutes because there's not a lot. Well, I'm starting to understand that there's very little that you can get to know to people like on a deeper level within 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Some people take a little bit longer to open up. So they try to give very generic answers. And so I pry just a little bit to try to, entice them to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And some people just don't open up as fast as others. And then others think they know what I guess not think they know, but I guess they want to they want to tell you. And you're like, yeah, that's perfect. But I also want to have this openness between us. And so, so that's what I'm finding.
Do you think that's because of how well people know you? Do you think that how well people know you makes a difference, or do you think it's just like their comfort level as to like how experienced they are in doing this type of thing?
Well, I've spoke to, so far. One was very used to like talking, and she knew what she wanted to talk about and say. And then there was another one who you could tell she knew that I was trying to guide the conversation because she was like a journalist herself, and so she was trying to, be careful.
Yeah.
And so it was obvious. It was obvious, and so, and I was like, well, like I pre-record them for a reason because I edit them.
Yeah. And
I did one interview for the podcast. This one, an earlier one, it was a friend, an old friend, right, Tirso, and so there was a lot of things he said on that podcast that I knew it wasn't within my privilege to share that information.
Yeah.
Like I just could not. And so I had to pull out like names and descriptions and things. And maybe he was I don't know if it was like self-incriminating or if he was like relaying information that other people didn't know and they could use against him. I didn't want to do that. I never want to do that with anybody. And so I take the same theory here. That I never want to release information that I know might hurt their sister or might hurt like their partner, or that they can view them in a bad light within like a general like scrutiny of judgment in public.
Well, I think that like maybe that's one of the things of like doing something like this, like a project like the podcast, or doing like the series that you're doing. Like I think that maybe that's one thing that comes along with it that maybe you don't often maybe you don't realize immediately. Like for me, like I guess
the responsibility,
like the responsibility of like being responsible for like what people actually say and whether or not people actually want that out there. Because I think sometimes when you get comfortable in the conversation, like you say things and you're just like sharing, like, and then people have emailed us like and said, hey, you know what, I said something. Can you like
not to put it in there?
That wasn't accurate. That wasn't actually accurate. Or you know what, I'd rather that not be in there.
Yeah.
And like
and I already knew.
But like for me, like at the beginning, I was like kind of like, you know what, whatever we say is just gonna be like natural. We're just gonna publish it
between us. Between us.
Well, no, and between us, and then I guess like I just. Like my mind just automatically transferred it to everybody else. I was like, okay, whatever we record is what we record. And then it wasn't until you were like, oh yeah, but we have to like, let's take this out. And then when you started saying that, I was like, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And I guess, that is like as us like doing this.
Yeah, there's a responsibility that you have to take. I think that's what I've noticed. That's what I've taken into account lately. with everything that's happening is there's a lot of, I never want to be disingenuous, and so I want to take responsibility for what I put out there, and that's including the things that other people say.
Yeah.
If I can help it, then I'll do it. But
see, it pays off to have a co-host, right? Because I wouldn't have thought about that, but no, it's a really good point, and I think, because then you think you put yourself in that position, and you're like, had I said something, and then I thought about it later, and I was like, oh man, like maybe I shouldn't have said that, or like I should have worded that differently. And then once it's out there, it's out there. So,
but doesn't it help though when you because today now, this was in a few episodes ago. Today now we can self-edit as we speak.
Yeah.
And now we're better at it.
Yeah.
But like I don't have that responsibility of being a journalist. I don't. Like I'm not out there investigating.
We're not journalists.
That's not what I'm doing. And so I'm out here just putting out information that can be useful. And it's simply information. Like I'm not out here to I'm not out here to gotcha anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that includes ourselves. And sometimes we have had to edit out a few things here and there, but now as we speak, we've gotten better at self-editing now.
Yeah.
And so when you go back and watch it, you don't have to do a lot of the hard work.
Yeah, because I guess you get used to it, this format, and because we're doing it so regularly that we're now we kind of know okay, this and that, what we want to say and how we and I think that helps that you listen to the episodes, because then
I do religiously. Yeah, I myself too.
So, yeah, I do too. So you listen to the episodes, and then you hear oh, okay, you kind of start finding things
gauging.
That you would rather change, right?
I start gauging how that conversation didn't go, maybe how what I wanted to say maybe didn't come across. Yeah. But
anyway, I was gonna say but I was just moving on to the next to say that I think you've been doing a good job. I have been on the interviews, I've been in the background, watching the interviews, and just and in some cases just making sure the internet's working correctly,
that it's not spotty.
Yeah. And,
stupid COVID.
And the conversations are really interesting. So I feel your pain in having to edit down to 15 minutes, because some of them are really interesting, and I'm I don't know how she's gonna do this. I'm glad it's not me.
Yeah, sometimes I remove a complete interesting conversation that we had that led on for 5-10 minutes, and I'm damn it, I can't use it. But hopefully I can use part of those conversations and maybe do my own podcast.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Fly solo a little bit, just for a little bit.
We're gonna call it Angie's Corner.
Angie's Corner.
Oh, that doesn't sound right.
No, that doesn't.
All right, scratch that.
Scratch it. We'll think about it.
We'll let you know once Angelica launches her own podcast. We'll let you know. But actually, the conversation I was thinking about having today. So we're at the end of September, but we're at the beginning of October, and actually the 2 months have a similar themes. And I thought, hey, it would be maybe good to talk about those things. So September is actually what you would consider self-improvement and self-care month, and October is
it was National Suicidal Awareness.
Yeah. Also National Suicidal Awareness Month.
Intervention or something like that. Yeah.
And then October is actually Emotional Wellness Month. And I was having a conversation with one of my clients this week, where we were talking about they're in the emotional wellness, and I'm saying emotional wellness on purpose, because we had the conversation of mental health versus emotional wellness. And I had written mental health, and they corrected me and told me, we prefer not to use mental health because we feel like there's a stigma.
There is
when you use those terms. So we use the word emotional wellness. And at first I was I just was okay, I'll use that. But then I thought about it, and I was I don't really know why. So you're agreeing. Before I say anything, why do you think why do you agree with that?
Because there is a big stigma around mental health. Mental health, immediately people think mental issues. Mental issues include things like schizophrenia. For me, that's one of the scariest, and including what I've never experienced it, but I have watched documentaries, and I've watched people would look like it, you know what I mean? To imagine to live in a world where you're completely scared of, and so things like that.
Schizophrenia is what, when you're scared of
Schizophrenia is when you it's a state of mind where you feel I guess where it feels like maybe like you're always watching out for yourself. Like you're always like scared somebody is trying to get you, or is trying to sabotage you, or is trying to like harm you, or is something, you know. And it gets to the point where they do things in such a manner where it looks scary.
Yeah. So do you think that that's the main stigma, is like that people associate like mental health with, or mental illness with mental illnesses like schizophrenia and stuff like that? Is that kind of the main like thing that you'd say?
Yeah. I think because I've dealt with it, it's easier for me to empathize. It's easy for me to empathize, but then there's other people who just don't want to deal with it. It is cumbersome to deal with somebody who has a mental health issue. You know, their whole life involves around it. And sometimes if it's at a point where maybe it's just too hard, they can drag people with them. And that's an emotional toll on the person who's taking care of the other person. And
it's like any other illness, no? Like if you have like a chronic condition, like, or if you have like
but this one, you don't know why. You don't know why, and it's difficult to explain.
There's definitely not as much medical like to say like, oh, you know what, you have a heart condition, and this is, you know, we're gonna like these are the medications you need to take.
So I think the problem with mental health is that sometimes there's times that are better than others. You can have an extended period of like months where you feel the person as the brother, the sister, the partner, the son, the mother of the person who's dealing with the mental health issue. Y'all can see the improvement, or y'all can see like, oh, look at her, she's fine now, or look at him, he's fine now, or everything's okay, like we're gonna be okay. And all of a sudden there's a trigger, or something happens, or just life happens, and they go down in the spiral, and you think to yourself, so it's not like it's very difficult to explain, because it's not like it's like you said, mentally ill, like physically ill, right? Like if somebody has like cancer, you know the process, you know what it's gonna look like, you might know what to expect.
I feel like it's more like there's more because it's so not that it's common, but I feel like that because it's been publicized so much, like that people know, like there's movies about it and this and that. Like you don't see like a lot of movies about mental illness and things like that, or like you don't see a lot of that. So I think like there's more of an acceptance of like, oh, okay, they have cancer, so they're gonna have to go through this process. They're gonna lose their hair. They're gonna do this. You know, there's assumptions that you make. And I think when you have like a mental health condition, or like you know, something that where you like need to get some support, you know, that you like that's not always as obvious. So it can be
tolling on the other people, and especially if you don't have an attachment. So especially if you're like if it's like your friend or something, or if it's somebody, an acquaintance, and they're acting erratic, and you're like, oh, she's just crazy.
Or it's not as easy to rationalize out, like also like it's not, like you can rationalize like somebody like
your parent,
like being in a bad mood, or like or like, you know, being mean because they're like, you're like, oh, they're suffering right now, they're going through pain. But if somebody that is like going through an emotional episode, like lashes out, or like you said earlier, like there's this like maybe like 5 minutes ago you guys were fine, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, this person now is like, you know, like they're guarded, that they have their guard, like they're like defenses up, or like you know, or they like might be mean or something, or like say like, then you're like, what the hell, like, you know, it's not like it's just like you're confused by it more, I think. Especially if you're not familiar with it. But one of the distinctions that they made was everybody needs a little bit of support, and just because you seek counseling or therapy, you know, it's like they're like, I think the reference they made was like when you change the oil in your car, you know, because, you know, there's a lot of wear and tear, and sometimes you just need like an emotional wellness. You need emotional wellness support because, you know, maybe you're going through a difficult time in your life. Maybe you're dealing with a pandemic and you're having a hard time dealing with your kids at home. Maybe there's an illness in the family. You know, maybe you're having a rough time in your marriage. You know, and I think, and so when they said that, I was like, oh, you know what, that's right. Like, you know, that makes a lot of sense. And so I was glad to ask the question, because otherwise I kind of understood why they were making a distinction, but I didn't really know. But when you think about it that way, I think it makes a lot of sense, because I think, I would say I've briefly been to therapy for a little bit, and I thought it did help me. It's not a regular thing that I do, but I think it did help me, and I feel like, it's not a bad thing to go and seek, if you want to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot to say. Well, here, let me start here. When you think about experiences and you think about some of the happiest moments or the most pivotal moments in your life, do they include anybody?
Like me? Like pivotal moments?
In your life, yeah.
Like as a child, or as an adult?
As an adult, as a child.
Do they include anybody?
Yeah.
Or they include you?
No. So I mean, like when you were experiencing, graduating from college.
Yeah.
Do you say you put that experience on the hard work of yourself or others?
No, I mean, I think to me, me looking at myself as graduating from college, I feel like that's an accomplishment. That was an accomplishment not just for me, but it was an accomplishment for my parents.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So in other moments, like jobs that you've had, would you say that you can thank some people for some of those jobs that you had that gave you an opportunity that you knew and who kind of took a chance on you?
Yeah.
So everything we kind of live with among people. We live our experiences with other people. A lot of the times acceptance speeches include a lot of other people because they're true.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to engulf yourself in somebody else's issues when you want to empathize or when you want to be there for them. On the same token, it's very easy to disassociate and distance yourself because you know it's going to be cumbersome, because you know it's going to be, I guess, it's going to be difficult. So, which is why I understand when they say when they use the term emotional, what was it, wellness? Emotional wellness, because emotions we all have. When you think mental health, you don't think we all have those.
Yeah.
You think no, that's them. That's that party over there.
Yeah.
That's the girl with schizophrenia. That's the girl with depression. That's the girl with anxiety that she has to leave. That's the girl over there. I use the terms girls. Yeah. Or that's them over there. But when you think emotional wellness, you start thinking, sadness, defeat. You start thinking all the things that can emotionally hinder you for a moment. And you're like, maybe I should, and it starts making you think, maybe I should talk to somebody. Maybe. So anyways, the only reason I bring up everything that we do together and all that we celebrate and all the heartache and all of that, we all share it. And so using something like mental health separates people, but using something like emotional wellness, kind of you don't disassociate, you can relate.
I guess, yeah, because emotions are related to other people. I guess you have an emotion, maybe for somebody else, or you have an emotion that, maybe was triggered by somebody, or you have an emotion that relates to somebody else. Or a lot of times emotions
the thing is that when you
are connected to
when you
people.
get help, when you start to talk to somebody, when things start to happen, that's when you yourself can start to how can I explain this? So when you start to talk to somebody with the issues that are happening now, right, and you're not holding it in, and you're not lashing out in different ways with actions, or usually they're actions. Usually you can become verbally abusive. You can become disattached. You can start self-medicating through alcohol or any other forms or things like that. You know what I mean? When you start talking to somebody with things that are happening in your life, right? So you get married, and within the first year, you are having a really hard time, and this is the love of your life, and you think this is, and now you feel like you can't trust anybody, and all of that. Imagine the harm, imagine the harm you're doing to yourself then. And 10 years later, you're divorced, and you've had all these relationships, these bad relationships where you just want to be loved, but yet you've been physically or verbally or mentally abused, and blah 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 blah. And that can then spiral you down to a depression mode, and that can you know what I'm saying? So if at the beginning you're talking to somebody from that moment when you were in that relationship and now you feel like it's difficult and you're like, I'm having distrust issues. Why? How much can it really help you then when you do divorce this person and all of a sudden you do have difficult relationships, but you can immediately recognize like, whoa, that's not like, I'm not where that person is at. Maybe I should like go somewhere else. I'm going to spend time with my family, or I'm going to make more of the effort to be with my friends, because maybe dating is not the thing I should be doing.
And I think if you're not getting to the core issue, sometimes like you can repeat the same pattern. So,
but that's the thing, Juan. Sometimes we don't have core issues. Sometimes we don't understand what they are, and that's.
Well, I think sometimes it's a lot easier to do like you said a lot, so I'm trying to like think about what I want to say, like which piece I want to talk about, because I think you said a lot of like good stuff, and but I think the one thing that I think sometimes it's easier to like drown your sorrows in like a 6-pack, 12-pack of beer, to go out with your friends, or
drown the sorrow with a new relationship.
Yeah, or like do those things, and like you take the pain away. And I feel like when you do that, because I've done like the whole like drinking my problems away, and the thing is like when you come out of it, like you're not like, your problems are still there, like you just have now you just have a hangover and your problems are still there. And I think that's why I say like you don't get to the core issue. Like the core issue maybe sometimes is like really asking yourself like what is this emotion that I'm feeling, and why am I feeling this emotion? Yeah.
Sometimes some people feel an immense emotion of sadness and they don't even know why.
And I think like sometimes like you don't even like when you think of emotions, like you think like happy, sad, angry, and those are the 3 emotions that come to mind. But you don't you don't recognize that there are all these other emotions that in between, like fear, like courage, like all these other like emotions,
or like or things that can be damning to you, like indifferent. That emotion is one that where that's recognizable for me, is to feel indifferent. I'm like, oh, what do you, when you ask me questions sometimes I'm like and you're like what? And I'm like and you're like, no, that's not, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. And you're like, why was that response? And I'm like, no, it's because I'm thinking of other things or something. But that, like, even that emotion that we don't all like it's like, oh, but because that emotion is so comfortable for so many people to feel indifferent. And under that indifference there's actual like feelings, but you suppress, and so you become that person that does that, that's like and you're like no.
Or you like brush it under the carpet or whatever, whatever. But like when we went to the encuentro matrimonial, that was one of the things that like they gave us a sheet of paper and it had like all these emotions, and I was like, what? Like, what are all these emotions? Like, why? Like, because not that I only thought about those 3 emotions, but like those are the 3 I was most comfortable with. So when I had to explain like, oh, why I feel this other emotion and this is why I feel it, and like blah blah blah, and this is what so like that was helpful to me. And I feel like sometimes you don't, like I was saying earlier, you're not like, it takes work to be able to like when you're feeling something, to say, why am I feeling this, and then to really like think, like really like go through the process of analyzing the what you're thinking. Okay, well, I'm thinking this because of that. Okay, why are you thinking that? Because so it's like you go through this whole like cycle, and it's like sometimes it's hard to do, and it's you have to learn it. Like you have to learn how to do it, because if you don't do it, like if you don't try to do it, then you just feel those emotions like over and over, but you don't know why you're feeling them.
I know there can be a lot of reasons why, but it's always helpful to talk to somebody.
And that's where sometimes it's helpful to talk to somebody. But like I think that there's also like a thing where like I don't want to say culturally, but I think like
no, culturally,
I'll say culturally. Culturally, there's just like you don't go to the count, like you don't go seek therapy, like that's not a thing, right? Like,
you get over it.
Like you suck it up. You like you. That's like a thing that you don't really like. You don't ever really hear people talking about it.
Hey, this is Angelica Casares.
And this is Juan Alanis.
Thank you so much for joining us on season 2 of Juana Words Podcast. You can find us on
Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, on Stitcher, Spotify, and other platforms. Also on our website at juanawords.com. And we hope you enjoyed the episode that you're listening to right now.
And if you enjoyed it, you can leave us a review and a thumbs up. If especially on the Apple platform, the higher ratings and the reviews we get, the more listeners we actually can be found by.
Yeah.
So
it really does help us. So we really would appreciate it, a rating or a review on Apple Podcast. And until next time, thank you.
See you then. Bye.
Bye.
How would you translate that word?
Superalo?
Superalo.
Rise above it. Like rise above it, no?
Would it be that?
Overcome it.
Yeah, like overcome it.
Yeah.
It's more like in within that word, it's more like get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Get over it. Move on.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Like within all that one word, you basically hear that, where it's like, and so what? Move on. And you're like, yeah. So that word has often been used, for on. And then the funny thing is that I'm so sorry that I get to call my mom and my aunts out like this. But they'll say things like that, and then they'll start talking about their heartaches and heartbreaks, and I'm like, you didn't superalo. And they start talking about in my childhood or when this happened, and I'm like, you're still talking about it, like you still remember it to the core, and y'all still, and sometimes they'll gather and still have fights about it. Remember when this happened and that happened and that. I'm like,
but you know what, that that's funny, but it also sometimes if you don't deal with stuff, like it becomes like a cycle too, where if you don't know how to deal with your emotions like in a healthy way, mm-hmm. then you don't teach your kids how to deal with their emotions in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And then that goes on and on, so until you just, I don't know, it just seems like, and then once you do start dealing with your emotions in a healthier way, mm-hmm. then you can see where things are, like maybe before that you couldn't see, like maybe within your family that you're like, oh, you know what, like now I see that we have some really unhealthy behaviors, we have some really unhealthy things that we do,
how we deal with it, yeah,
that we probably shouldn't deal with things that way. But people have to be receptive to listening to.
Yeah, you can't change people. You can definitely not change people. All you have to do is know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And that's difficult to accept, to be like, because I think for me at the beginning I would tell them and you would get mad at me and you'd be like, why are you always trying to diagnose people? I'm like, I'm not. But maybe the way they're dealing with things isn't the way they should be dealing with things. And I'll say things like, yeah, I think they might be experiencing this, or I think they might be experiencing that, or maybe they should seek help.
And that saying seek help, that can be an offensive thing.
It can be offensive.
What do you think? Why are you telling me that?
I know. I think people hear me say, girl, you need some Xanax. You need to calm the fuck down. You need to be laid up on somewhere. Somebody needs to evaluate you. You need to stay at a center for a week, 2 weeks. People feel like I think people hear that when I say maybe you should talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And immediately they're like, what do you mean? What is that supposed to mean? No, I think, it can sound, because it sounds like you can't handle your own emotions.
Mm.
You can't deal with it, right? And so I've had people say things like, okay, calling people out on things, but they'd use finite and defined definitions and say verbal, verbally say things like I don't deal with that. No, I just, you move on. Or saying things like, well, soy chingona. I can do it. I know how to. And I'm like, yes, bitch, you can. But guess how much easier it's going to be if you talk to somebody.
But a lot of times you get to that point where you're like, I'm invincible because you're like suppressing everything, because you're like pushing everything down.
And I'm not
like,
saying that you're...
And you're like, you're not dealing with it. So you're like, no, I'm a badass bitch. I'm going to like handle this. Instead of saying like, you know, like instead of like actually like dealing with the pain, you're just like, no, I'm tougher than this.
Well, imagine all the men out there too. The same thing. Same thing. And then you're like...
Cabrón, yo soy chingón.
Yeah. Yo puedo.
I'll say worse things, but I'm not going to turn the podcast.
Yeah. Yo puedo. Yeah. No, pues yo puedo. Por eso yo trabajo bien duro.
Yeah.
Porque and then you start to, unfortunately, you start to associate like your mindset with the work that you do.
And I think there's even, I think maybe there's a little bit more of a stigma, like for you as a Hispanic man to like, to want to seek out, to talk about, even to talk about. Like,
do you know how, you remember how difficult it was for me to try to like go talk to somebody?
Yeah.
You remember the conversations I was having with my family?
Yeah.
Where I was like, I think I'm going to seek therapy. And they're like, why do you need that? Just get over, like, superalo. Yeah. Or like a lot. And I did. And I'm not being like particular. Like, I mean, everybody. Like before, like I even talked about getting help. It was so fucking like, what? First of all, you have the money and people think it's so expensive. People think it can be so like money draining to talk to somebody where you get nothing.
But the thing is, like, I think the thing that is it's an investment in you, like, so.
But
like,
it's not that expensive sometimes.
No, even if it is expensive, though. It's an investment in you, because like you're like, you know, instead of like spending money like that, like you're gonna spend money regardless, right? Like your money that you come in is gonna go out regardless. So either you like, if you spend the money like doing things that are like numbing your pain, you know, you're still gonna have the same pain, as opposed to like if you invest in like trying to better yourself, like that is actually gonna lead to like, that could possibly lead to other things, like, you know, other improvements in your life, or like other
health.
changes.
It can lead to physical health.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we're so like afraid to like make an investment in ourselves, because we're like, oh, you know what, I need to take care of my household. I need to take care of these things first. I need to like do this. I need to do that. Like you put everything else before you, and you're like, and then when you think about it, it's like, but what good does it do if you're like, if you have all these things, if you like all your bills are paid, but you're not well.
Yeah.
Like you're not feeling well.
Yeah.
Like you're feeling sad. You're feeling like, you know, you're feeling like all these things, and and like, what does it matter? Like at that point, it's like you can have all the things that you want, but like,
if you feel shitty,
you still feel shitty about yourself, or you still feel shitty. You still have really shitty moments. You know,
we're all gonna have shitty moments.
Are you enjoying it? Like, and that's the thing. It's normal.
Yeah,
it's normal. But you know, when you have shitty moments and you feel like you need the help, there's nothing wrong with asking for it.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. No, I'm just like, I'm thinking, like, it's because like we're saying a lot, so I'm trying to think like to back to certain things that we're saying. But no, I mean, I think it's just a conversation that is important to have, and I think that
mental health is definitely. I'm sorry, what was it? Emotional wellness. Emotional wellness conversations is should be a topic of conversation, and should be touched on. For me, in my opinion, everybody should seek a emotional wellness counselor, therapist, even psychiatrist once every 3 months. In my opinion, I think you should be able to check in with somebody often. Again, because there's things that maybe you're unaware of. And as soon as you talk to a therapist, or as soon as you talk to somebody, you'll be surprised. So I'm back in therapy.
Yeah,
I didn't mention that. I'm back in therapy.
Oh, you haven't mentioned that. Yeah.
I didn't mention that. So I'm back in therapy. My first session was yesterday. Yeah.
And you were, and funny enough, like you told me earlier in the week, you were like, I think you should see a therapist too. And my reaction was like, for what? So like, you know, I'm definitely not like you know, I'm definitely
you're not the spokesperson
for mental health or for emotional wellness, because I'm definitely still learning, and I think I still have a long road to go, but you know, I think the little that I've learned, like, I am seeing how it's starting to help me. Like even like you were saying, like you can't change people.
No.
But sometimes you can model behavior. Like, not that you're modeling like, hey, like, watch me, this is what I'm gonna do, and you're gonna like learn from this. No,
Yeah.
it's like you can say like you can talk openly, like, you know what, I was feeling these emotions, and then I thought about why I felt those emotions, and then I came to the conclusion that blah blah blah. And I think sometimes just having those conversations and being open like that, like, gets people to like be like, oh, okay, like, they pay attention sometimes because it's different, especially if you're not used to that.
Yeah. You know what feels absolutely amazing, that, and this is you should do, you should go into talking to somebody because of you, because you want to help yourself, and because you know that in the long run it might help you, and it can serve you a purpose in your life. It should always done for yourself, always and forever. But you know what feels absolutely amazing?
What?
And it still makes me like emotional.
What?
Is when you're having it's when you're having a you feel yourself emerge, and then your loved ones point it out to you, and they're like,
you mean emerge? You mean like where you feel yourself like achieving, or you feel yourself like getting to a point where you're better, you're coming to better understand your emotions, or like you're
I don't want to use the word better, but yes, when you're starting to emphasize yourself, and
like
you can feel I don't want to say that either. I don't want to use finite, indefinite words when I talk about mental health or emotional wellness.
Okay, I'm still learning, so I know.
That's for me.
Yeah.
But when you're at a point where you feel this, you feel a sense of clarity, and you come across that way. And so when triggering moments, when you have a spat with your partner, or you have one with one of your sisters, or maybe your mom, and you can stop for a second and be like, okay, I understand what she's saying, and maybe I don't understand what she's saying. Do I understand my feelings about it? Like those moments, there's a click where you don't have a natural reaction, right? Where you have where your reaction is to mirror what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're much more. Would you agree that you're much more sympathetic to other people and their like emotions, because you can recognize that, you know what, maybe they're having a bad day, like maybe they haven't dealt with like something that happened to them.
Yeah, a little, yeah. I think so, but I think it goes beyond that. I think it's more like, I I start to understand people on an emotional human level, and and it is. But I, even with understanding that, I understand that I still have them too.
Yeah.
I still have my moments.
Yeah.
And I'm still like, they're not wrong. They just are what they are at the moment, and maybe I can have wrong in the sense of like I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel bad, I feel, I feel angry, things like that.
And sometimes it's like you were saying, it's not that finite. Like I think what you end up realizing sometimes is like, it's not that finite. Like it's not that you're bad and you're good. It's like more like, maybe at this particular moment in your life, at this particular moment in, you're just not in a good place.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Or not again, finite.
Yeah.
Not in a good place.
Yeah, well, like
that's
just
defined.
Like my terminology that
Yeah,
I know.
I know.
But like it's like you're not that you justify what they're doing, but that you can you can rationalize it a little bit better. Like like. Not,
I think I hold much, like I said earlier. I hold a little bit more. It's not murky for me as much anymore. I can see now that maybe the rationalization behind it maybe was, for them at the moment might have been like rational.
Yeah.
But in the bigger picture of scheme of things, maybe that wasn't the way to go about it. And I can see that now. I can definitely be like maybe, or simple things like I need to separate myself. Like I'm not sure what this person is doing, and my reaction isn't going to be good either. And this is not going to this is not going to pan out well for any of us. So not detached. I need to either
Remove
physically,
yourself.
physically remove myself, or take, or start to understand that don't take my emotions so definite.
And I think one of the biggest things for me that I don't know if this is related to like emotional wellness or not, or it may be, and I think maybe it is, but I think one of the biggest things for me has been to realize that I can't control. I can't control what the behavior of other people. I can't control situations that happen. I can't control, like, all I can control is like how I can respond, how I like act in a situation.
Isn't that difficult though?
It is hard because you're like, especially like you grow, like, especially when you're like so used to like being in there, like getting in the trenches, or you're so used to like, like, no, I gotta fix this, I gotta solve this, I gotta, like, you're so used to doing that, to then realize, like, you can like spin your wheels until you're blue in the face and you're not going to change anything. Like, it's not up to you. And like, that's the stuff for me is like,
it's difficult to accept.
Yeah. Like you're like, but when you come to that realization, like I came to that realization at some point, and I was like, oh, you know what? Like, it's so much more peaceful when you do that.
Yeah. Because you start to take care of, that by you not reacting and you not being like having the normal ways of that you thought were normal reactions, you not doing that, and then you kind of like thinking about it, not only are you taking care of yourself, you think you might not be doing this, but you're taking care of the other person.
That's what I was just thinking, is like you allow, like, not only are you allowing yourself to grow, but you're allowing the other person to grow. Because if you're like, like if you're in a marriage where like every time you fight, you like, you both go back and forth, and like you said earlier, like that person does something and then you react to it, as opposed to like to getting to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna like step back, and like I'm gonna like not eat my pride, but I'm like that has such a stigma too.
Yeah, it does.
But I'm gonna like, I'm gonna put my things aside for a moment, and like really think about like what's going on here.
Yeah.
Like,
sometimes
really
you have to think. You think, who can take the moment right now? Yeah. Who can just have it?
Yeah.
Who can, for the sake of my mental and your mental, who needs this moment? Yeah. You do or I do. And then at the end of the day, the other person realizes, like, we've had this many, many times, where at the end of the day, where one goes off left and the other one, and you like meet back and you're like, I don't know what happened.
And it's so much healthier to do it that way. Because sometimes all you need is like a few moments. All you need is like maybe an hour, maybe a couple hours, maybe a whole afternoon.
I know, and sometimes
like step away and like. Really,
sometimes it's as easy as like the other one calling the other one on their bullshit. Yeah. Sometimes you're really good. Sometimes they're calling me on my bullshit, and I'm like.
Vice versa.
And it feels good. It feels good to know that I'm going to get caught on it.
But I mean, it feels good too to know that you have that person that can call you out, and like, that it's in a loving way. That it's not, they're not just calling you out.
Yeah. Again.
I'm going to call you, like. Yeah. Oh, they're doing it because like they actually care about you.
Yeah. But isn't this like great though, that you can deal with your emotions, and that in that sense you can deal with other things that happen in life, where being I'm gonna call out a few people out here. I think sometimes some people aren't really introverts. I think they just like to say they're introverts because they don't like to deal with people. And it's easier to be like, no, I recharge on my own by myself, and extroverts, they take my energy or whatever. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. Sometimes before anybody comes for me. But I think it's easy to just not deal with people. And again,
yeah, I mean,
the world is lived.
It's an easy excuse.
The world is lived. The world is meant to be lived with others. Otherwise, there wouldn't be millions and millions, billions of people on planet Earth.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get so much out of interacting with other people. Like you get so much out of like, I think that's just who we are. We're just built like that. Like we're built to interact with people. We're built to interact with each other.
Yeah, my immense happiness has happened with other people. Yeah. My immense sadness has happened with other people, and I would not change that.
Because like, if you achieve these great things and you have nobody to celebrate them with, like, isn't that like, I don't know, I feel like that it feels empty. Like it's like an empty like achievement because you can't celebrate.
You can celebrate with yourself. No, you can
like,
celebrate.
You can celebrate with yourself, but I'm saying like if you achieve all these things, but you've excluded yourself so much from people that you can't even like.
But the thing is that every achievement hasn't been done by yourself. It has been done by the backs on other people. And that's the part that I guess I'm trying to get to, and I'm trying not to say it in a forum that is that comes off across like that.
Just say it. Like,
yeah, I know. I'm trying to say it now. Is that all the achievements that we've ever had has been on the back of other people. All of them. And for us not to recognize that, for us not to like try to be better people so like that we can be better with others, it's to me it's selfish. It's selfish to be like fuck her, fuck them, fuck that, I do myself, I do me. To me, it's like, all right, well, go stay your fucking ass over there and don't come around because fuck that. Like, you can't be. It's not like that. Like
nobody's an island. Right?
Yeah, nobody's an island. And if we were, then I think there wouldn't be continents. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, yeah, and I think that's where I think. Right now, that's where my frustration is at. Is that that whole like everybody is like trying to be their own, and it's like yeah, like no, definitely work on yourself, get better, do this, do that, do all the fine things, do all the great things, but understand that you can't be bitter to people who are out there being good and nice to each other.
Okay. With that, I wasn't gonna touch on it. I wasn't sure, but now, like, since you said that, I do want to touch on it a little bit.
Okay.
So the whole, like, I think that's where, like, sometimes you can get confused with the whole, like, self-help, like the whole self-help, like, industry. And I don't think the industry as a whole is bad, but I think that there's a lot of like, there's a lot of noise in this when you talk about self-help, because I think that self-help can be like now. I think it's so broad that it can be like anything. So like, it can be very self-serving, when you talk about self-help. And, you have to be careful when you navigate that self-help thing to really understand, like, what is it that what is it that I'm looking to achieve, and what is it that like this, like, guru or whoever it is, or this program is going to do for me. Like, have they done it for themselves? Like, is that something that, that is visible, or is it just like a business? And I think the water gets real murky there.
Yeah, I can see how.
Yeah. So to me, like, I feel like that's a whole other conversation. Like, I feel like that whole like self-help thing is like a whole other conversation. And so, and I don't want to sound like I'm dogging out the self-help industry and the self-help people, because self-care. I think that I feel like there's a lot of like benefits.
I read them. I read them. I still listen to some of them.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to do that.
But where's my book, as a matter of fact? Yeah.
But I think it's like, you just have to be careful, because like anything else is like there's predatory behavior too. Like, where people are just looking to take advantage of, knowing that there's a certain number of people. Like, it's like
that there's a need.
It's like shooting in the dark, and you're gonna hit something, and you're like,
oh, I see.
And you're like,
it's like you're shooting. It's like you're shooting in the dark. Your arrow into a pen of cows. You're gonna hit one.
Yeah, and it's like that there's a lot of pain out there, and that. People that maybe don't want to go do the work of actually dealing with their emotions, maybe are going to be a little bit more susceptible to being like, oh, you know what, here's like this easy thing that you can do. I have this quick solution for you that it's going to work for you. It's going to, like, in 3 months you're going to feel great. In a week you're going to feel awesome. It's kind of like those diets where they tell you, like, you don't have to exercise, you don't have to like eat healthy, you can just do whatever you want and you're going to lose weight, and like you can just like do whatever, like, it is.
A lot of the times they do help, but sometimes those results are short-lived.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, you have to be like selective and like actually look and see like who's the person. Do they actually like?
Well, I have a recommendation. If you're a person who does a lot of self-help reading books and all of that stuff, take the information that that serves you from that, and you can leave the rest.
Yeah.
Like, take the information that makes sense to you and then leave the rest.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to use it as people would like to say, as a Bible. It doesn't have to be exact, and take portions from it. And I think that's where some people maybe miss it.
Yeah.
Where if they're not feeling what they're supposed to be feeling, or they're not calculating the way it's been calculated out for them in the book, and they're like, but that's not happening for me yet. Well, no, maybe it's not going to. But take from the book what you may, and
That's a good point. Yeah. Because like even now, like the book that I've been reading I'm a slow reader, so I've been reading this book for
the last 2 months.
For the last 2 months, but I'm savoring it because it has a lot of good information.
It does.
But even when I'm reading it, like there's parts that I'm reading and I'm like, I can see how that's helpful, but I don't think that to me, I don't think that
it doesn't apply to me.
Like, so I don't like that part. I'm not gonna how do you say, what's the terminology? I'm not gonna put it in my memory. I'm not gonna like.
You store it. I'm not gonna bank it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna store it in my I'm not gonna use my storage space to for that information. But other information that's in there is really helpful. So I'm like, I kind of curate like what I want out of it. And I think that's a good point. Like, you can find like, maybe that self-help program or guru or whatever is
but that's the difference between
everything for you, but
but that's the difference between self-help books and actually seeing a therapist or a counselor, is that counseling and that therapy is geared towards you.
And it's one-on-one. Like if it's one-on-one, then it's like really like you're like in there and you have an hour or whatever, however long you're paying for, or like not paying for, like whatever however you're getting in there. Like, but that amount of time is spent on you. Yeah,
it's geared towards you. It's been very personalized. Because you're the client.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can think of it as in terms of like seeing a doctor. Like the girl next door who's probably your same age, maybe your same weight, but maybe she doesn't have the same medical history as you, and so the diagnosis or the care isn't going to be the same. Y'all might look the same, sound the same, be the same, act the same, but you're not the same.
Yeah.
So maybe the doctor told you take vitamin B, and homegirl over here they're like take vitamin C. You know what I'm saying? Like it's geared towards you. Y'all might look. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. Another good analogy.
Okay.
You're getting better at this.
I'm working on.
You're working on it. All right, I can see it. No, but I had some questions, but I think we've covered a lot actually with this conversation. So I don't even know that these questions that I had put together are that relevant. I think that I kind of feel like we're in a good place. No? Or do you want to say?
Let's look at it. Let's look at it.
I think these were all like very novel questions.
Well, let's go through them and see how they get answered.
All right. I kind of asked that one. Where do you even get started?
Oh, that's a good question. You see? Oh, Where do you get started? Talk to somebody, and if you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody, Google.
Well, I don't know if you're gonna mind me sharing this.
No, go ahead.
That's like a thing too. Is like so we have insurance, and you were having a hard time. Like you said, you're like having a hard time.
I tried it in D Live.
Yeah, and you were having a hard time
3 months ago.
Like finding somebody that you like finding a person that you.
I knew I needed therapy, and I came to you and I was like, Juan, and it was a desperate moment. I came to you. I said, Juan, I can't do this myself. I need help. I need to talk to somebody. And you're like, and you went, you.
Then I went on.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, then I went online and I pulled up a list and I called you over and I was like, look, here's.
No, what 3 months ago? Do you remember I did a session 3 months ago over the phone?
Yeah.
And it was through MD Live.
Yeah.
And it was just phone call.
Yeah. I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the word you were talking about?
No, I was talking about like
the one recently.
Like, even recently that you were like. I
did something.
A hard time like finding a list of like finding a provider.
Yeah. So 3 months ago, I knew I needed therapy, and of course during the whole pandemic, there was no way that I was going to be able to see anybody. But I talked to somebody over the phone, and it was a woman, and I felt comfortable and I felt fine, but something felt off, and and it wasn't her. It wasn't her at all, and I couldn't figure it out. And then all of a sudden, like it dawned on me about 3 weeks ago, and I was like, I need help. Like I need to talk to somebody because there's a lot going on, and not be in general life, right, is happening for everybody, but personally, on top of everything else. And I was like, I need help. And again, I came to you and I was like, Juan, I don't know how to do this. Like, I'm lost. And you're like, well, what are you looking for? I was like, I need somebody that's close to me. I need somebody that I know. And of course, this is a whole thing for me where I'm like, where I feel comfortable and secure, is that I need somebody who I can reach. Like, if I have to see in person.
Right.
So they have to be within my space.
Within your, like, where you can get to them, like, within
if I have to.
Within your city limits.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you went and you looked up a couple of people whom I might be able to see in person if I had to.
Yeah, and that sometimes it's like something simple like that. Like, and it's not that you couldn't do that, but maybe you just weren't in the frame of mind to, like, go through the process of finding it. And I think something like that, like you said, talk to somebody, and then, like, maybe it's just talking to somebody and that you know, that maybe you know has, like, could help you with, like, finding somebody. Or you could say, like, hey, you know what, like, I do want to see somebody, but I'm not sure where to go.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I write?
But yeah, if you have health insurance, go through your health provider. If you don't have health insurance, there's a lot of free information out there.
Hey, I'm Juan Alanis.
And I'm Angelica Casares.
And this is the Juan of Words podcast.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and juanawords.com.
If you like this episode, please leave us a comment or a review. We would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye. So as I was saying, camera really interrupted me and turned off. So yeah, I was saying that the county and the city are really great places. Sometimes when maybe you don't have insurance or you don't know where to start, that might be a place that you can start where, you know what I mean? Or if you have a job, you go through HR and you ask them.
Yeah.
And usually they're called human resources because they have resources for you.
A lot of times, like in Houston, do we have a helpline?
We do have a helpline.
And Houston is 211. So like a lot of times those places will connect you to resources. So if you call them and you tell them your situation, you can tell them, like, you know, I'm looking for a counselor, but I'm on a fixed income and I'm not able to pay like a lot for a counselor. And they may be able to refer you to an agency that might be able to help you.
That's a good idea. And actually, some of the therapy that I've seeked out. So here we have something called Baylor College of Medicine, and usually they have clinical clinicians, students who are trying to get their degree or trying to get their PhD, and they have to do residency, and sometimes they offer a very low cost. And of course, they actually answer to higher level people, right? So they discuss like what you're talking about, and they ask them if they're going through. Of course, they're clinicians, they're PhDs, they've studied this stuff, and they know what they're doing. So that's where I went. And then another one was through another university, was Houston, U of H, University of Houston. They had it was specific to me, to my condition, anxiety and panic disorder. And so sometimes they have clinics very specific to what you're dealing with.
That's a good point, because even with vision, like sometimes like you can go to the university and they have a vision program. So like if a university near
has an optical optometrist.
Yeah, or like even if a university near you has like a psychology or psychotherapy like program, more than likely they might have like some type of like student-based clinician program where they are able to like maybe offer some services, even if not free, maybe at a very discounted rate.
Which is a really great place to start. But like I said, if you have a workplace, there's a human resources, you start there. And if you don't, and maybe you're working part-time, that's another option. It's to go through your city, your county, look at the colleges, look at other places like that. We're actually full of resources.
Good. Do you want to keep going? Or?
No, let's keep going.
All right, so all
I got a time for you, baby.
All right, I'm gonna move on because otherwise I said
you were gonna answer, weren't you?
I was gonna answer, but like that would have to be an after dark version. But
oh Jesus, oh shit.
No, so I had down Eat, Pray, Love as a philosophy. I kind of feel like Eat, Pray, Love is almost like the English version of Soy Chingona. Like, is that like just me being like? Is that just me being like? I don't know what the word is, but like.
That would have to be maybe for people who have money. Because first you got to have the time to pray. And then if you're not working,
you can pray with that. You can pray.
No, like if you're like the whole Eat, Pray, Love, that's meditation type of pray. That's like where you sit your ass down and you do that consistently, constantly, and you're not trying to be interrupted.
Oh, okay. Like an hour at a time.
Yeah. So, but if you're not trying to be interrupted, what are you doing?
Yeah. But I don't know. And I mentioned that because I feel like the whole Eat, Pray, Love, and I reference Eat, Pray, Love like from the movie, like because I having watched the movie, I was just kind of like, this is like so like such baloney. Like that you just go and like you just travel and you just eat these foods and like you just like all of a sudden all your problems are fixed. And it's like I know it wasn't that simple. I'm simplifying it a lot, but I was like, that's just like it just doesn't seem real. Like it doesn't seem like that. Like,
do you want to cut it like full of shit?
Yeah, like it's full of shit. Like I'm like, I can go like. First of all, you have to like be able to have, like you said, have the money to be able to like take this long extended trip.
In theory, wouldn't that be great if that's all it was?
Yeah, like
wouldn't we all be doing it?
Yeah, like if you had like a very serious like trauma that you were dealing with, and you could just go and like travel for a year, and then like you come back and you're like, I'm all fixed.
I think the whole
zen now.
I think the whole Eat, Pray, Love was all like spiritually based. Like you seek spirituality. That's good. Like if that's the way you want to go about it. But I don't know if that's the extent of where you should stop.
I guess my problem with it is I feel like it sets false expectations that, instead of doing the work. Okay.
You know where I have a problem with Eat, Pray, Love is that people think they can literally pray their problems away. And this is not just towards that. This is not right. the whole like chakra and Buddhism and all, like it's not just that, or it's not just Catholicism and all like that. It's the whole theory behind that. All you got to do is just pray. And to that, I'll say this: like I fucking prayed a lot. I begged God to stop. If he was doing this, I said, please, God, stop. Like if this is your punishment to me, I got it. I'm hurt. I'm wounded. I've taken your point. I got it. You hurt me. Please stop. It didn't stop until I seeked help.
That's deep. Yeah. No, I mean that's definitely true. Like I do believe in prayer, but I'm not like I do pray, but I feel like I agree with you. Like I feel like you can't just pray things away. Like you can't just be like, oh, let's do this prayer. Like I think there is power in that.
There's huge power in prayer.
I do think there's like huge power in prayer, but I don't think that you can like, there's just like certain things are just not.
There has to be action behind prayer.
Yeah.
There has to be action behind just putting your little hands together and praying to God, or to pray to the universe or spirituality or Mother Nature. There has to be action behind it. That can't be your thoughts can't be the only action. There has to be.
And even in the gospel of like Christianity and like Catholicism, like part of what they preach is that you treat others well, that you like relate to others. So I feel like it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, that nobody's an island. So like, when you start doing those things, like when you start acting more, godly, like by being kind to other people and like those things, like they're basically kind of like in a different way, getting to the same point, I feel like, in a way.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's like, you can't just pray and be like, fuck everybody. You like have to actually pray and then like put action, like you said, behind those things, and actually try to be kind and try to like understand, sympathize with other people. And then in that process, like you're growing, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna sit in my corner and like pray and that's it. It's gonna be fixed. And
also, it is in the whole theory behind Eat, Pray, Love. The whole eat it goes in terms of like what you're consuming. Yeah, you can definitely change up your consumption, right? Of how you eat to fix issues. Yeah. Right? You maybe your mental health has a lot to do with maybe your physical.
Yeah, and that's
like attributes. Point. You know what I mean? It can be a lot of that, but again,
diet has a lot to do with it.
Your diet sometimes has a lot to do with what but that's in theory. Yeah. We're hoping we can fix everybody with how they eat. Yeah. We're hoping we can fix everybody with praying a little bit. We're hoping we can, just all we have to do is feel immense amount of love But how do you feel that immense amount of love when you're not feeling the love? How can you portray, how can you reflect, mirror love if you're not feeling it? Self-love or any kind of love. And so in theory, that would be marvelous. In theory.
Yeah. Right, you're like knocking it home.
No,
you're bringing it home. I'm like, okay,
no,
that's good.
No, I'm not trying to. It's just I've thought about that before. I watched the movie, try to read the book.
Yeah.
I tried to read the book. I did try.
All right, here's a question. I'll ask a few more, and then I think, like, what are the milestones and how do you achieve them? Like, I guess if you're getting started in your personal journey, like for emotional wellness, like, how do you know like what a milestone is?
And for me, because I can only speak personally, I think a milestone for me was I went through several of them. So I remember first seeking help and then feeling bad about it. I was like, this is not going to help. This is not going to work for me. I'm a lost cause. Like this is stupid at this point. If I've gotten to the point where I'm seeking help, I must be a complete fucking mess. Like next step, psychiatry town. Choo choo. Here comes a crazy girl. Yeah. That's what I thought. I'm trying to make fun of it because I don't want to cry about it.
But at the beginning, could you see like a milestone? Like,
yeah, that's where I'm getting.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I thought I was. That's where I thought I was going to end up. And then all of a sudden, milestone for me, one was like, I started to think back on what my therapist was saying. I was in moments, right? Or something happened and I would go back and reflect. I was reflecting. I would go back and reflect and be like, maybe that's what the therapist was talking about when they said, when things like this happened, what was my mindset? What was I thinking? That was a milestone for me. When I started to assess my own self, and I was like, I don't know if that was the best reaction. What reaction could I have given? And then all of a sudden, I started to actually do those things when I started doing things. Another milestone for me was when I started to apologize and be like, hey, you know what? That was a shitty thing for me to do and say, I didn't mean that. And I'm sorry. And I started to do it publicly too. There's a whole thing when after my sister passed away, and I started to fall back on my old habits. When my sister passed away, there was a blog that I posted that was called that I Promise Not to Be a Bitch. That one was a whole completely total reflection on like it's not your fault that my sister passed away and I was acting like it was. I was blaming everybody. And so milestones like that were like, okay, apologizing, and then all of a sudden things started changing within myself. I was like oh, like I can do this. Oh, like I feel different. I feel.
It was encouraging.
Yeah, I was like, dare I say light? I feel immersed. I feel me.
And I think, and I also wanted to ask you, like at the beginning though, like before you went to therapy, like did you think like, oh, if I reach this will be a milestone, or if I reach this, it'll be a milestone? You did think those things, or you were like going in like not really like not like confused as to like I don't know what a milestone looks like.
No, so I did go in thinking to myself, like, if I do this, if this happens, I reached it. If this happens, I'll reach it. And it was things like, because I stopped doing things in this journey that I've been on. Like I stopped driving. I stopped being able to be alone, and I kept thinking to myself, if I can just, and I still say this to you, Juan, if I can just drive to the grocery store, go into the grocery store, get groceries, and drive back home, I reached it. That's all I've ever wanted. That was my like I'm fixed. that's not it anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I still want to do that. That's
Yeah.
still my big, because it's a milestone for me.
Right.
But
it's
I
not
never accepted that I've been okay so far until I got there. And so I was always like, it's helping, but it's not helping. Like, I'm a lost cause. Like, oh no.
It's not the do all end all.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, this is it for me, folks.
Mm.
Like, that's it. Done deal. Close the chapter, close the book. I'm done. Somebody, y'all can come visit me, laying up in under a bridge somewhere. And literally, yeah.
I hate it when you say that.
I know. But that's literally like the way I would think, and so.
And I can understand like now why you would say that.
Mm-hmm.
But it always like when you would say that, I would always be like, why? Like, why does she say that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. Like, don't say that. You're not gonna live under a bridge. What the hell?
I don't know.
But
Yeah.
I guess like to kind of close out, like what would you say are like some things that you can start doing now to start like maybe thinking about like dealing with your emotions better, maybe thinking about, do I need therapy, maybe thinking about what do I need to do to understand what I'm going through.
I think where we can all start, to those who don't have, to those who are clearly very lucky and they don't need, there may be those people who just need to see somebody on a regular basis just to talk about their feelings, or not a regular basis, like a once in a blue moon,
Mm-hmm.
And talking to their parent is suffice, or talking to their, you know what I'm saying?
To a loved one, yeah.
To a loved one, it has been enough.
Mm-hmm.
And they can go on.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, like, amazing. You know what I mean? I guess to everybody who's there, and to everybody who you can't figure it out, and like you are at the end of the rope, like you're hanging on, the thread is pulling, and you like over the cliff, and you can see it coming. To people in between and through all the spectrum, all I can really say is where to start is compassion. I think the only way I know how to say it is in Spanish, where a tu prójimo, have compassion for yourself and have compassion for the next person, whoever that next person is. Whether that's your brother, your sister, your uncle, your aunt, your neighbor, your friend, a stranger on the street. Start there. I think with compassion, a lot of understanding comes into play. And then you can start there.
I think that's...
If you're seeking help and you don't know how or why, and you feel like you're lost, I think having compassion for yourself or having compassion for others will be a starting point.
And I think what I can say is like, as somebody who is, if you're a loved one of somebody who is going through an emotional wellness situation, like I think what I would say is open your mind. Like open your mind to like thinking beyond the norms that you're used to, like of not being so constrained by like the mentality of like superalo, or the mentality of like what's wrong with you. To open your mind a little bit and to say, you know what, maybe this is like a situation that I don't understand, that maybe I need to go and I need to like research, maybe I need to go and I need to like talk to somebody myself and figure out like what this is. And I think that, like you said, compassion for yourself as a person going through it, and then an open mind from somebody that cares about you.
I would say compassion for yourself too. Even if you don't understand it, that's okay too.
Yeah.
At least like you're at a point where you're trying.
Yeah.
Where,
it's like you were saying, like you feel like you're gonna fall off the bridge or off the edge, and it's like as somebody that cares about you, like you want to extend the hand, and you don't want to see that person fall.
Yeah, but you have to have compassion not only for me but for yourself, because you might mess it up. Yeah. And sometimes we're so fearful of going into things because we might fuck it up. Yeah. And that's the whole thing with mental health, is that it might happen. And I need you as like maybe the person who like is better mentally, can withhold perhaps better than I can have not only compassion for me but for yourself. Yeah. Because we need people who can do it on themselves, be able to have compassion for themselves, because when they realize how much compassion they can give themselves, it's easy to share it.
And I think, I'm relating it to our relationship, because our marriage, because, and I relate it, but I think maybe it's not that relationship. Maybe it's another relationship in your life. But I think, one of the things that always sticks to me too is like, the reality is that we're all going to have different seasons of our life, and that you are going to like go through rough patches. I'm going to go through rough patches. And one of the things that, I keep referencing the encuentro matrimonial, because I think to me it was very helpful. But like, I feel like just in terms of like my own like psyche, but like one of the things that they said is like, a veces ella va a estar baja y tú vas a estar arriba. And sometimes the balance is going to be like this. And then other times it's going to be like this. Yeah. Or sometimes it's going to be even. But the commitment you make in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or it's a father son, a mother daughter, a sister to sister, whatever, the commitment is that when that person is down, that you are going to try to help them up, or you're going to try to like, not that you're going to like make them feel better, but that you're going to like carry the weight a little bit more.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're trying to say.
I'm not you. I'm the one seconding
no,
analogies now.
I see what you're saying. I think, no, that's a good analogy, but I think that would be a good analogy for something else. Yeah. But in terms of like, because you might never get to experience what I experience.
No, that's true.
And I might never get to experience what you experience. And so I would hate to think that you would think that there would come an end point where you're like, hey, enough with your like, feeling bad and your emotional distress and all that other stuff. Like, it's my turn. Basta. Yeah, where you're like, it's my turn.
No, and I don't. And
you know what I mean? And so I would hate to think that. But then that comes in the moment.
What I'm saying is a little broad.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
And I think it applies to like life in general. Yeah. And so maybe it's not like the greatest analogy for like mental, like emotional wellness. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like going back to what I was saying earlier about being open and like being willing to go through the journey, like in a way, like figuring out if you're like, it's inevitable if you have somebody that's you care about that's going through this, you're inevitably going to go through the journey in some way or fashion or another.
Willingly
or unwillingly. So what I'm saying is like, be open-minded and go through it a little bit more willingly, because that's going to help not only you, but it's going to help the other person. Yeah. So, and I feel like
we divulged into this, and that's good. We
unpacked a lot.
We divulged into this, and I like that. Yeah. I like that. Like I've said before, I am forever going to be a mental health advocate. Forever and ever. I think there's just, for me, I feel in a sense it's saved like the way of life that I live. I don't know if it's saved my life in theory, but it's saved my life in the way that I live. Like, I don't know where I would be today had I not taken down this journey. I really don't know where I would be. Yeah. Really don't know. Yeah. Like I said, I've had those moments where I felt like life would just not, where I was like, this is, like I said, where I was like, I'm done, but I've never tried to, I've never gone to the extent of I haven't, like, I don't know how to express this. Well, I've physically harmed myself, like, not to where it's like, because I still have to sometimes. So for me, to feel physical pain is to feel physical pain is to know that I'm still alive. For those who understand that, you understand that. So I've never tried to remedy not being here.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but I understand why people do self-harm.
Yeah.
Like cutting themselves and things like that. Because I've gone through the process of like not like to draw blood from me. But to the point where I was like, I want to feel something else besides mental pain. I need to feel physical pain. But not thankfully, but I've never gone to the extent of like taking razors to like my skin in any phase of it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. No, and I think, as seeing it and not always understanding it, I think, it is, I can see the difference of like being more open-minded and not being more open-minded. And not that I'm trying to change the subject, but I don't think I can speak to what you're speaking to. I can speak to what I like, my experience within this.
Yeah.
And like, so like to me, like I can see the difference in like going kicking and screaming and like not kicking and screaming and saying, okay, you know what, maybe I don't understand what's happening here.
Yeah.
But man, that's a deep topic. I think this is a good stopping point. I think maybe we can talk about this again some other time.
Yeah, no, this is really, even if we never talk about this again, I think this is definitely a great way. Maybe we can re-listen to this in 5 years and think to ourselves, wow, like we're here.
Yeah.
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 Who knows what we'll be doing in 5 years?
Yeah. That's the hope.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for listening. We appreciate this. We hope this episode is helpful. As I said at the beginning, October is Emotional Wellness Month, and I figured what better time to start talking about these things, and us as Latinos to really like have this conversation. I think,
or non-Latinos,
like,
or those who are skeptical.
Yeah, or just skeptical.
Yeah,
but and I'll say like for me, being a Latino, like also like is important because I feel like there's that stigma, and like sometimes we don't talk about it.
Yeah,
and so if we can talk about it, we can have this conversation. Maybe somebody else can like hear it and be like, okay, you know what, maybe I can like start thinking about it or start looking into this.
Yeah.
But with that,
yeah.
I'll say as always, remember to leave us a comment or a review on Apple Podcasts. We would greatly appreciate it. If you like this episode, share it with your mom, share it with your sister, share it with your friends.
Share with your homies.
Share it with your homies.
Let them know we're out there. Let them know that we're out here trying to have these conversations. And if you have topics for us, and maybe you have, you know what? Here's an invitation. If you want to be maybe a guest, and you have an interesting conversation that you think should be talked about, reach out to us. Yeah.
And I've been meaning to do this shout out, but I keep forgetting. So the shout out is for Edgar, because the music that you hear at the beginning of the show and at the end of the show is Edgar playing the guitar. And he's getting really good at it, and he says it's an original song that he played. So
tune, original tune.
Enjoyed the music at the beginning, enjoyed the music at the end. That's Edgar. Oh, look, I'm choking over here. That's Edgar playing the music. So shout him out and tell him you enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right.
And with that, we'll leave you. Bye.
Bye.